These are the 20 questions that we need answers to this next NBA season, covering 11 through 20 since part 1 has already covered 1 to 10. The 11th question that needs to be answered next season is, are the Nuggets still a top 3 team out west? This is a question I couldn't have possibly imagined we'll be asking ourselves only 1 season removed from them winning a title, but this is where we are right now. With the rise of the T-Wolves, Thunder, and Mavericks, along with the losses of Bruce Brown and KCP, the Denver Nuggets just might be out of the top 3 teams in the Western Conference. If the Nuggets are to stay a top 3 team out west, it's going to be the young guys that will need to be ready when their numbers are called. Christian Brown is likely to start in place of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and Peyton Watson should move up in the depth chart. A few of Denver's young guys like Julian Strother and Zeke Nagy will also see more playing time. But the real question remains, are they ready for the increased responsibilities as Denver aims for a second title in 3 years? Nikola Jokic is exceptional at helping his teammates succeed, as he did for Gary Harris a few years ago, but Jokic has shown he can develop strong links with basically anyone. This bodes well for Brown, Watson, Julian Strother, Jalen Pickett, Hunter Tyson, and the rest of Denver's young players. However, until we see them perform, it's fair to wonder if letting KCP go was a mistake. Denver is an unusual contender with a lot of uncertainties. Will Russell Westbrook fit in? Can Dario Saric strengthen the front court? And will Jamal Murray regain his explosive athleticism? While these veterans have proven themselves before, Denver's young players have not, as they certainly have the most to prove next season and will ultimately dictate just how far this Denver team can go in the postseason. The 12th question that needs to be answered next season is, how much longer will the Trae Young era last in Atlanta? DeJounte Murray is gone, likely because it was easier for Atlanta to trade him than Trae Young. Young's large contract and the need for any team acquiring him to change its entire playing style limit his trade options. In the Murray transaction, the Hawks gained a defensive specialist in Dyson Daniels, who will join Bojan Bogdanovic to create a versatile 3-man guard rotation. If Atlanta's front court performs well, they could return to the postseason after last season's tough 36-win campaign. However, if things don't go as planned and the Hawks decide they need bigger changes, don't be surprised if they consider moving on from Trae Young. Zachary Richer-Shade, the number 1 pick in the 2024 draft, gives Atlanta some flexibility to make a major franchise shift. But in the same light, if Atlanta can't get any valuable pieces for Young, so be it. For the last couple of seasons, Trae Young has been dealing with some nagging injuries, which led to a decrease in shooting efficiency. However, all it would take for him to get back to that 2021 form is a healthy season. When Trae Young's in peak form, he's one of the best shooters in the game. And especially if you're talking about deep threes, he's right up there with Damian Lillard and Stephen Curry. When looking back to when the Hawks traded for DeJounte Murray, we can now all see that was not going to be a good decision, as having 2 all-star level point guards on the same team together was always going to be a struggle to find any real chemistry. Personally, I believe that Atlanta does not have to trade Trae Young, as with more seasons under the belt of Onyeka Okongwu and Jalen Johnson, I think they just need to wait and see what they actually have. The 13th question that needs to be answered next season is if Gary Trent Jr. is up for a defensive challenge in Milwaukee. If Gary Trent Jr. can even give the Bucks around 25 games of slightly below average production, he would still be a steal, considering that the Bucks got him on a minimum deal. Of course, the Bucks hope for more out of him, but it's important to remember what's typically expected from a player of that pay grade. Milwaukee benefited from a similar situation last year when the market overlooked Malik Beasley, and Trent is poised to bring that same kind of explosive shooting as a 5th starter. Trent's career 38.6% three-point shooting rate is nearly identical to Beasley's 38.5%, with both of them being great volume shooters. The key difference between these two, though, is on defense. Beasley has never been a good defender, and with a last-minute change from Drew Holiday to Damian Lillard, the Bucks were short on a defensive specialist, and Adrian Griffin made the call to assign Malik Beasley as the primary ball defender, which, to put a long story short, got him fired. Gary Trent Jr. needs to surpass the level of defense that Beasley provided, as he's going to need to make a defensive impact beyond just racking up steals, which has been a hallmark for Trent Jr. for years now. With Lillard not known for his defense and Chris Middleton recovering from surgeries on both ankles, Trent will often be matched up against the most dangerous opposing guards and wings. If the Bucks want to avoid a 3rd consecutive first-round exit, Trent must step up as a defensive stopper. The 14th question that needs to be answered next season is what the Grizzlies have planned at the center position. After seeing their 9th pick and 2-time AP Player of the Year Zach Edey score 14 points, grab 15 rebounds, and block block 4 shots against the Utah Jazz in the Summer League, the Memphis Grizzlies might have considered him as their future center. However, Edey wasn't able to finish the tournament due to an ankle injury, raising concerns about his readiness to handle the pace and space of the NBA. The pace is one thing, but over the course of his collegiate career, Zach Edey was unable to establish himself as a perimeter threat by adding a 3-ball. However, he has a soft touch around the basket and was able to make some mid-range jumpers. As many of his coaches and NBA scouts have a level of belief that Edey could one day develop a consistent deep ball. Overall, Edey looks like a promising option at center, potentially able to replicate the physicality, screen setting, and offensive rebounding that Steven Adams once provided. Ideally, his presence in the paint would allow Jaren Jackson Jr. to return to the roaming, disruptive role that once earned him the Defensive Player of the Year back in 2023. If Edey isn't ready to start or close games, Jackson might have to play at center again, or the Grizzlies will need to find a veteran to fill the role. The 15th question that needs to be answered next season is if the New York Knicks have enough depth at the center position. Mitchell Robinson has been Tom Thibodeau's go-to center for years now, mainly because Thibodeau values size and shot blocking in the heart of his defenses. However, Robinson has struggled with injuries, only playing 31 games last season and actually losing his starting spot to Isaiah Hartenstein, who has since joined the Oklahoma City Thunder. Robinson missing games wasn't just a last season thing either, as in the previous season, Robinson managed to play in only 59 games. Currently, the only other center on the Knicks roster is Jericho Sims, who only averaged 13 minutes a game last season when he even saw the floor. The Knicks could experiment with Julius Randle at center if necessary, but that's not a position I'd like to see him play too much, as you can't get away with a small ball lineup against teams like Milwaukee and Philly. This would also require Tom Thibodeau to adjust his defensive strategy, which as we all know, rarely happens, as he usually sticks to his strategies. While OG Anunoby potentially has the strength to battle centers, his primary value is guarding wings, making him less ideal for full-time duties against big men. Another factor is because of OG's lack of health, and especially if he's guarding opposing centers, he's going to take a beating. If Robinson can stay healthy for most of the season, the Knicks might avoid this problem. But if his injury issues persist, New York might have to sign a center or commit to a small ball lineup for a significant part of the year, which could lead to more injuries down the track come playoff time. The 16th question that needs to be answered next season is if this is the season where Jonathan Kuminga finally breaks out as a legitimate star. Entering Stephen Curry's 16th season, the Golden State Warriors find themselves without a secondary star capable of taking the burden off of the aging Curry. Jonathan Kuminga stands as almost their final hope to help Curry back to the postseason. Standing at 6'8" with the size, length, and athleticism ideal for defending against the league's best forwards, Kuminga has all of the physical tools to thrive in the NBA. However, despite his many highlight-worthy moments over his 3-year career, the 21-year-old is still yet to fully turn his game into an all-rounded one, as he lacks a consistent 3-ball. From beyond the arc last season, he was inconsistent to say the least, connecting on just 32% of his shots from downtown, which is well below the mark needed to become a reliable perimeter threat. The Warriors have long expected more out of JK, and I'm not just talking in terms of shooting, but also in rebounding and defensive rotations. His natural speed and leaping ability are undeniable assets, but he must further develop his basketball IQ and improve his decision-making to maximize these gifts. Faster recognition on defensive reads and quicker help rotations will be crucial for Kuminga next season if he is to truly impact both sides of the floor. Next season, Jonathan Kuminga needs to be more consistent from deep, as he must elevate himself to the second best player on this team if the Golden State Warriors are going to be able to maximize what is left of the career of Stephen Curry. The 17th question that needs to be answered next season is if Benedict Mathurin and Jarice Walker are trade chips for the Indiana Pacers to become true title contenders. The Indiana Pacers have no regrets about their blockbuster deal for Pascal Siakam, followed up by securing him to a long-term deal. They're also pleased with the leap of Andrew Nembhard, as he's turned himself into a starting caliber guard in just his second season, solidifying his place in the team's core. These two players are expected to play crucial roles as the team aims to build on their success heading into the 2025 season. However, this newfound clarity for Nembhard and Siakam leaves former lottery picks Jarice Walker and Benedict Mathurin in a more uncertain position. Walker, who saw minimum playing minutes as a rookie, has yet to prove his long-term value. His path to minutes remains murky, particularly after the Pacers re-signed forward Obi Toppin and committed to Pascal Siakam on a 4-year deal. Both Toppin and Siakam will play significant minutes at forward, leaving Walker Walker in a potential logjam without a clear role. Meanwhile, Benedict Mathurin was a great asset last season, averaging 17 points off the bench, almost playing as the team's sixth man. His scoring prowess earned him 4th place in Rookie of the Year voting, positioning himself as one of the most promising young talents on the roster. However, with Nembhard's more complete skill set, better passing, superior defense, and overall better fit alongside Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin's role has become less certain. Despite his scoring talent, Mathurin seems like he's going to have to settle for a 6th man role at best. While this ultimately may suit his skill set, it's fair to wonder whether the young guard will be content with such a position so early in his career. Having made a deep playoff run to the Eastern Conference Finals, and with 2 max contract players on the roster, the Pacers are no longer in a rebuilding phase. The urgency to win now raises questions about the opportunity for Jarace Walker and Benedict Mathurin, as they're likely not going to have much time on the floor. The Pacers face a tough decision. Should they wait and hope that these talents develop under restricted minutes, or should they consider moving them for more established win-now players before their value diminishes? We wait on this answer, as it could alter the course of the franchise, either crippling this team moving forward or helping them become true contenders. The 18th question that needs to be answered next season is, what does the center rotation look like in Boston? Because of the injury Kristaps Porzingis suffered in last season's playoffs, he's going to be sidelined until the new year. With the Celtics center depth already not being strong, Boston will need to navigate the early part of next season without their prized big man. But how they do it requires careful management of their remaining front court options. Relying too heavily on Al Horford would be unwise, as entering his age 38 season, Horford remains a critical component of Boston's playoff aspirations. The Celtics need to try and preserve him, especially given how vital his experience and versatility are to the team's postseason hopes. Overextending him early could diminish his effectiveness come June, and the Celtics can't afford to risk wearing him down before the games truly count. Boston's other options are Luke Kornet and Xavier Tillman, and these two offer very different skill sets, as the Celtics will need to adopt a fluid approach depending on matchups. Kornet brings value as a lob threat and a shot blocker, but his defensive impact is largely limited to a drop coverage, as he struggles to be effective when forced into switching schemes. Tillman, on the other hand, is a more versatile defender, capable of switching across positions and disrupting plays on the perimeter. While he doesn't protect the rim as well as Luke Kornet, he offers an integral potential as a developing three-point shooter, similar to how Al Horford evolved into a stretch big midway through his career. The Celtics will need to stay flexible and adapt their center rotation based on each opponent's strengths. Mixing and matching their bigs depending on the situation will be key until Porzingis is ready to return. More importantly, the team will have to hope that Porzingis comes back at full strength and is durable enough to play through the postseason without requiring significant rest. Mixing and matching the center rotation during the regular season might suffice, but come April, the Celtics will need the two-way impact of Kristaps Porzingis to truly have a chance to defend their title. The 19th question that needs to be answered before next season is, can Rob Dillingham be ready right away for Minnesota? Rob Dillingham is stepping into a unique and demanding role for a lottery rookie, joining a Minnesota Timberwolves team that just won 56 games and has championship aspirations. As the likely backup point guard, Dillingham is expected to provide a spark off the bench, both as a playmaker and a scorer, roles that typically require more seasoning. However, due to the aging of Mike Conley and the Wolves' need for depth, the 19-year-old might find himself with even more responsibilities than most rookies, potentially starting a significant number of games throughout the 2025 season. Minnesota have shown tremendous faith in the young Kentucky product, making a bold move to acquire him by trading a first overall pick in 2031 and a pick swap to secure the number 8 selection from the San Antonio Spurs. Dillingham's collegiate numbers reflect on his offensive prowess, as he averaged 15.3 points per game in just 22 minutes, showcasing his ability to score in bunches. His offensive arsenal is already advanced, featuring a variety of moves such as step backs, quick changes of pace, and blazing speed. In many ways, his style mirrors that of a young Lou Williams, known for his jittery movements and natural scoring instincts. Despite Dillingham's offensive upside, it's important to remember that he's going to spend a large portion of the season as a teenager. It's almost inevitable that he's going to face stretches where he looks overmatched, a typical hurdle for rookies adjusting to the speed and complexity of the NBA. If he manages to avoid those rough patches, he would be an outlier to the usual development curve. On defense is a major question mark at this stage. While the Timberwolves' top-ranked defense will provide him with solid framework, opposing teams will undoubtedly target him on that end of the floor. Whether Dillingham can survive a league that is notorious for exposing young players' defensive weaknesses will be a crucial test for both him and the Wolves. Ultimately, this season represents a trial by fire for Rob Dillingham on both sides of the ball. His ability to meet expectations is going to be one to look out for next season, as if he can give the Timberwolves a much-needed offensive boost off the bench while being at least average defensively, the Timberwolves would have struck gold in the young rookie. The 20th question that needs to be answered next season is if LaMelo Ball is truly a franchise player. This was a question I originally wasn't going to cover, but after seeing a comment on my 10 questions video, I had to cover this. Once viewed as the clear face of the franchise after earning an All-Star selection at just 20 years of age during the 2022 season, LaMelo Ball has seen his trajectory come to a standstill due to back-to-back seasons where he had to miss time due to ankle issues. While he's still young enough to fully recover and reclaim his position as the Hornets' undisputed leader, the landscape in Charlotte has shifted since his absence. Since LaMelo was last consistently the team's focal point, Charlotte has undergone significant changes with a new ownership group, a revamped front office, and a different head coach. Those changes alone could alter how the organization views its long-term plans, and LaMelo's injury history only adds to the uncertainty. Complicating matters further is the rise of Brandon Miller. The Hornets drafted Miller last summer with a second overall pick, with hopes that he's going to become a great secondary option for LaMelo. However, Brandon Miller exceeded expectations in his rookie year, finishing third in Rookie of the Year voting, averaging 17 points per game as he looks like the next coming of Paul George. And especially in the time without LaMelo Ball, when he was being guarded by the best defenders in the NBA, he looked unfazed. The ideal scenario is that LaMelo and Brandon Miller will form a dynamic duo, giving the Hornets two young stars to build around with complementary skill sets. LaMelo's playmaking and vision, combined with Miller's scoring and versatility, could make them a formidable pairing. However, nothing is guaranteed, as LaMelo will need to have a bounce back year both on the court and off it. If you missed part 1 of the series, you can click here to see the first 10 questions that we need answers to next season.